Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm just popping by and I'm going to create a little card, just something nice and simple once again. And following on from yesterday, I'm going to use the Auricula stamp, which is TE2. So I've got a piece of Pink Frog smooth card that is 4 inches by 6 inches, and this card is 300 GSM. I've got a piece of black card, which is 1/4 of an inch bigger, so 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, and a card blank 5 by 7, and I've cut my own card blank from A3 card. I was doing a little bit of gardening, but it's a little bit too warm now to actually sort of be digging and putting plants in, so I thought I can leave that till it's cooled down a little bit. And I thought we'd create a card. Now, there's simple ways you can add ink to your card, and one excuse me, one of them is using a brayer. I'm just giving my brayer a wipe just in case there's any colour on there, because this is the brayer that I use for my inks, and sometimes there looks like there's no ink on your brayer, and then you turn your wipe over and you've got colour on there. I'm also going to have a smaller piece of scrap card just on one side. So what colour am I going to start with? We're going to start with salvaged patina. I'm going to take my brayer and I'm going to pick up the salvage patina. Now you wouldn't be holding your ink pad like I'm doing. You would just take your brayer and roll that over your ink pad so that you've got some of the ink on there. You don't need to go right to the edges, it's not a problem. And what I'm going to do is just sort of flick the brayer. So roll and flick. So you sort of flick as you come towards the bottom of the paper, so you're sort of doing like a wheelie. So we've just got the salvage patina on there, and then I can just add any of the colour that's left on there. Not much colour at all left, and we're just going to layer colours like this. So then I'm going to use shaded lilac. So let's take our shaded lilac and let's try and leave it so you can see everything. So we'll take the shaded lilac. Now the salvage patina and the shaded lilac are sort of the less of the stronger colours. So let's just place any of the excess ink onto the spare piece of card, because then you can create yourself a second background. There we go. I don't think I need that one. And then I'm going to use a little bit of cracked pistachio. Let's take a little bit of cracked pistachio. I have got wilted violet out as well, but I won't add that probably until the end. So this is cracked pistachio. Just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I love these colours together. And what I'm going to do is, like I would with pencils, like I would with paints, or like I would with if I was colouring, I'm going to layer colours. So I'm going to go back to the salvaged patina. I'm going to add the salvage patina, and I'm going to keep picking up a little bit of the ink just so that I can see that salvage patina on there. Don't think there's much for the card, so that's salvage patina. Then I'm going to go to the shaded lilac once again, and you can just pick up a little bit of the colour and then just lightly flick the ink just onto the card. So you're just going sort of a flicking motion. This is the spare piece of card. Then I'm going to take the cracked pistachio, and we'll add some of the cracked pistachio And I'm just layering that colour. I'm adding more of the cracked pistachio. Let's see if there's any of that ink left. And obviously you can change this one and add more if you want. This is just a spare one. I won't be doing anything with this. It's just so that I don't waste any of the ink. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the shaded lilac, just so I can see that a little more. And it's a lovely way to simply add colours to a piece of white card and break down the fear of that white space. So let's just pick up a little bit more of the Salvage Patina, which is a much lighter colour. And as you go over, obviously the colour that you've applied previously is sort of underneath. So I'm going to take the shaded lilac once again and just add a little bit more of the shaded lilac. I'm then going to take a touch of the wilted violet and I'm going to roll my brayer. Can you see how much is on there? So I'm going to take off the excess so that it's not too dark, and then just add a little bit. I can pick this up if I wish. Just add a little bit of that wilted violet. Now, if it's too harsh for you, keep brayering over so that you soften that look. Let's just take the excess. So keep brayering over if you haven't got a lovely sort of soft look. I'm then going to go back to the shaded lilac. So let's take the shaded lilac. And I can see that sort of building up lovely. I'm then going to take a little bit of the cracked pistachio, and I can't speak, a little bit of the cracked pistachio. Now with the oxides, you can layer the colour. So the colours layer beautifully. Let's just add that colour to there. Now you've seen that I've brayered on both pieces of card. So I've brayered off the excess, and I'll just show that again just so you can see me brayering off the excess, and I've added the colour to here. Before we just look at the brayer, let's just add a little bit of water just to our card and just allow that to do its thing. Let's just clean up just so that we haven't got lots of moisture underneath. Now my brayer looks clean because I brayered off the ink, so let's get a clean area and let's just wipe over the brayer. You can see there's quite a bit of ink on there, so always give your brayer a little bit of a wipe because it does look like there's nothing on there. So let's take our card and give that a little bit of a blot. So what you can do then, so we've got sort of bleached out areas, and you can look at your card then like I'm doing, and you can decide whether you want anything more. So I think I'm going to have a little touch more of the cracked pistachio just over the top of where I've added the splatters. I'm going to show you this. Again, we'll just take this piece of card and add any of that excess just onto there. I can splatter that with water another time. And then I try to get into a good habit of just wiping over that brayer before I put it back, just so that I don't then contaminate any inks that I forget about with another card. Now what you can see now is, you can see I've layered the cracked pistachio just over the top. Right, let's grab our ink pad. So I should have grey one out here. So I've got my VersaFine Clair Morning Mist. I'm a big fan of Morning Mist. Where did I put the stamp back? So let's take the Auricula. Let's just move that kitchen roll out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. Oh, have I left? Yes, I have. Let's just take, sorry about that noise there. Just bring this kitchen roll back in. I'm going to use my Morning Mist VersaFine Clair. I am a big fan of Morning Mist. So I'm going to take the Morning Mist and just give that lots of tapping motion. Just so that you've got plenty of ink on there. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of the kitchen roll and I'm sort of going to dab off a little bit the ink that's on the text. There we go. And then I'm going to decide where I want to stamp my floral. So I think we'll add that just here now. And obviously this is not going to be quite as dark as the black. Now you've got that Distress Oxide ink on there. I've not dried it, I've spritzed with water. So just give the ink a little bit longer, just to sort of add the colour, the outline to the surface of the card. Now it will be added to the surface of the card because the card will no longer be absorbent. And the reason it isn't absorbent is because you've added those inks to the card. So we're not stamping directly to white card. So you're just giving that plenty of time just to grab hold of the surface. And just so you can see, we've got our floral. It works rather nicely. And then I have a, she says if she can pick it up, I've then got a mask of the Auricula, which I can just add here. Now this image that I've stamped first will be the image that is on the top. All images that I stamp following this will be behind. So let's just take again that VersaFine Clair Morning Mist, the grey. I just like to give plenty of tapping, and then I'm just going to remove some of the text, or you can just diffuse it a little bit. Make sure you can see that. And then we're going to add this one here. Now this should appear behind the first one. So whatever you stamp first, that is uppermost on the top, and everything you stamp after goes behind. And just remember, if you've used that oxide ink, just to give that a few moments, just to sort of grab hold of the surface, just to give your stamped image. There we go. If we lift this up, and that now appears behind the other one, which works quite nicely. So we will colour the image in. And what we've got here, let me just show you here, where we've got, let me show, it should go like that. here, so if I just take a pencil, if you sort of miss a little bit, because I've used the grey, I can just go in with a little bit of the pencil just to add the petal once again, so that the other one, obviously you don't want to use a black pen, but I want that one on the top, just so that the other one is underneath. And here you can see I've missed a little bit of the sort of shading, so I'm just using a HB pencil. So then I'm going to take, once again, line those up properly, and then again we will ink that up with our Morning Mist. And again, I'm just taking my time just to add that detail. And oh, I nearly didn't then. Just take off, just so I've sort of got a diffused edge. I'm going to add this here. Now this one will appear behind that one. And again, just give that a little bit of time, just so that it absorbs onto the surface of the card and you don't lift it too soon. Sometimes we can lift things too soon because we're in a little bit of a rush, but just give that a few seconds, probably a few seconds longer with your stamping onto the oxide. There we go. That's wonderful. So I've now got my design. Let's just add a little bit of the shading there. And it's great because I can just use a pencil. And then we will just grab a piece of copier paper. And the copier paper is just so that you can blot the image, just to make sure you've got no ink lying on the surface. Now, if that was the black ink, more of that would be lying on the surface because the black does stay wetter a little bit longer than the other colours. There was a little bit of ink on there, but that's okay now. So what I'm going to do then is take my circular template plate. This is about 2 1/4. Is it 2 1/4? I do this every time, say it's 2 1/4, then wonder if it's 2 3/4. So it might be 2 3/4. I do it every single time. Yeah, it's 2 3/4 across. But I say that every time when I'm doing it. Right. And I'm just going to use a HB pencil. And I'm just going to draw around this circle. Now, it's up to you how much or what size circle you add just to your design. It's entirely up to you. I've just got a penciled circle on there. Let's move that out of the way. And then I'm going to take my little brush. I've still got water here from yesterday. That's good. What I'm going to do is add a little bit more colour to this floral here. So I'm going to start with my shaded lilac. Let's take the floral off here and then we can use that as our palette. Just add the shaded lilac and let's add a little bit of the wilted violet. and then we can do a little bit of colouring just with our Distress Oxide inks. So we can just add a little bit more of the colour. So this is the Shaded Lilac. I'm just adding a little bit more. You don't have to sort of cover everything up. What you're doing is just giving a little bit more definition to this particular floral. So I've now got the Wilted Violet, and I'm going to take a little touch of the Wilted Violet, just add a little bit of the Wilted Violet, and I'm just then going to go until the colour starts fading, and then just blend that out a little bit. And what you want to do is just sort of make sure that this floral stands out a little bit more prominently than the other florals. So I'm taking the Shaded Lilac again, just to blend out the edges. And it's usually a good idea if you let things dry. Again, with stamping in grey, if you've missed a little line, you can just do it with your pencil. It's absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do now, have I still got that here? I've got my very fine paintbrush. I'm going to take a little bit more of the Wilted Violet, pick that up, and then I'm going to go in with a little bit more darkness of the Wilted Violet and just blend out to nothing. So again, take that Wilted Violet on each petal and then just blend that out. So you're just giving a little bit more definition. Now, by using the finer brush, it stops you from adding too much to that floral. You don't then add too much water or too much ink. It works really well. You can just blend that out. But what you're doing is giving this particular floral a little bit more dimension than the other florals, just so that that is a little more prominent and stands out from the other florals. And it's about just layering the design. And again, if you've got too much, just take off the excess ink. And that's what I love about the oxides. You can also colour with them. And as long as you've got the right card, that ink will move. But obviously you need to make sure that you've got the correct card. And I can keep going over, just making it a little bit darker. Again, layering colours like I would as if I was using any special pencils or anything like that. It's when you layer the colours that you get more of the depth, and it really works. So just take your time just to add a little bit more depth. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some more of the Shaded Lilac. And it doesn't matter when I'm colouring, whenever I'm colouring, I always take my time. I don't rush the process. So I can just add a little bit of the shaded lilac. And again, that fine brush is the game changer, because you can just add a little bit of that colour, again, without adding too much. What we need now is a little bit of cracked pistachio. So we'll add a little bit of cracked pistachio just to bring in touches of that green. And we'll just pick up the cracked pistachio. And the colours work so beautifully together. Again, I'm not using too much. I'm just adding little touches of that cracked pistachio. Once you add your touches of white, that really does make a difference. But so does adding just a little touch of the cracked pistachio. And I'm using very little water, just so that it isn't diluted too much. Let me show you. So if we lift this up, you can see that that floral is a little more prominent than the others, which is just perfect. And what you could do is you could let the floral dry, and if you wanted to add even more, you can add even more. So I can add a little bit more of the cracked pistachio. Just going to add a little bit to the centre as well. Just little touches. And in real life, you can definitely see the difference. But my brush is almost dry. So I'm literally picking up almost dry colour just to add a little bit more sort of that green. So you could then, you've got ink left on here, you could take another piece of card because you've got all that ink left on there, and literally just pick the colour up. You could even turn the card around and just add this just to your card. Take it again and move that along. So you can create several backgrounds whilst you are doing this. So you've now got another background which you can spritz with water and let that do its thing. And you've still got colour on here that you could spritz with water and add to another card. So just make sure that you don't waste your ink. They actually create several of the backgrounds because they work really nicely. So just so that you can see that. But so we've got this background we've created, and we've got that one. So you've got two lovely backgrounds that you can create for extras. Just give that a dry. And then you've got your card that we're continuing work on. And I think it's a good idea just to allow this to just dry a bit before you try to add any more of the white or any more of the colour. So let's just give this a little bit more colour. So I'm going to take the shaded lilac, so we can take our acrylic block again. Now, the advantage of doing it on the acrylic block is, like you've just seen, you can create another background. So what we can do now is we can go so just blend this out. So I'm just using that fine brush again, like so, and just adding more of the shaded lilac just to this circle. And if you can let things dry naturally, that's wonderful. And just adding a little bit of that shaded lilac. I'm not adding the wilted violet to the circular area, but I will add a little bit of the cracked pistachio. I think cracked pistachio is such a lovely colour. Let's take that cracked pistachio. I'll pick up the cracked pistachio, and then we can just add, and I've just got a little pot of water just on one side that I'm just dipping my very fine paintbrush into. There we go. Just to give a little bit of shaded lilac. Let's just make, you can also, we could spritz that with water just very lightly, just to sort of add some moisture to the card. It sort of brightens the colours up and it'll diffuse any of the straight edges and lines. But you've also got this colour here again. So let's just spritz this with water. And I haven't dried the card that we did previously, but we can add this now to the card as well. Let's just, and what I would recommend is that you let that dry naturally. And then we can come and have a look at that later. But you've created extra backgrounds as you go along. Now on your Auricula stamp set, you've got this text here, often displayed in individual pots on shelves. So I can use that just like a background element. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So let's just add the background element, and I'm going to use that morning mist once again. So let's take the morning mist, and I've not dried anything. I'm not going to worry about drying. I'm just going to add this text around my circle. And I'm sort of using the text as a background stamp. And my card is still wet, but it's absolutely fine. I'm just going to let it do its thing. Like so. Just add a little bit of text just here. So we've just got that as so. You can still see there's moisture on there from the water, but I've stamped straight through the water. But it just looks just so lovely. And then let's repeat stamp the text. So we'll grab a little spare piece of card and we'll repeat this stamping, but now we're going to do that in the nocturne, just so that that's in the foreground. Now it's up to you at this stage whether you keep it as is or whether you cut it out all individually. And it's what's hilarious is I haven't actually pressed where the O and the F are. So let's just ink that again. That's better. So it's at this stage you decide whether you want to cut it up or leave it as is. I'm going to cut mine up. Just so I can spread the text out just along my composition. Let's cut this down. It's just a little bit smaller. And then I can sort of display this across my page, and this could quite easily be a journal spread as well. So it's up to you where you decide to put it. So often displayed in, pick it up Tracy, and I'm using the background to overlay the text on the top. So I've now got the text split up but highlighted in the white just in those areas. So let's just take this now. And whilst I'm faffing, sticking little bits on, that means the background is having time to dry naturally. And it's wonderful because at the same time I've got other backgrounds that I can now use. And apart from the sort of text that I've cut out, there's no dimension on there, so it could quite easily go large letter. Put a little bit extra glue on there that I didn't need. That's it. So can you see you've now got them sort of touches in white. We'll add some shading and touches of white, but then I quite fancy a little quirky bird. So you could quite easily leave it like that if you wish, but I'm going to have a quirky bird just because I adore them. I'm going to use quirky bird, and I'm actually using this one here. And we'll stamp that in the black. Move that because it's got adhesive on, just so then it's in the foreground. So just stamp on a piece of spare card. And now this card is more absorbent because I haven't got those distress oxides underneath, so it's more absorbent. So shall we add a little bit of colour now? So let's take the little A7 acrylic block. Let's add a little bit of colour. So let's use the wilted violet. pick up the wilted violet. So I've now got a fine brush loaded with all that pigment of the wilted violet. And we're just going to go around the edge. Then as it starts to fade, just sort of blend that out. And I've not added any more water. I'm just using whatever's on my brush, and now it's literally non-existent. We'll just blend that out. And then I'm going to use a little bit of the Shaded Lilac. I could not speak. So a little bit of the Shaded Lilac. Again, a touch of water. Pick up the Shaded Lilac, and I'm just going to add a touch of the Shaded Lilac. Just a little touch, and you've guessed it, I am going to add a little touch of cracked pistachio. So just turn that round, make it easier for myself. And just pick up a little bit of the cracked pistachio. I'm just going to add a little bit. I'm sort of just going to touch with the, just so that you can see it's got a little touch of the cracked pistachio, and we'll cut that out in a second. So let's just move this somewhere, nobody knows where. This is the background where I just layered the colours on the top. So let's just spritz again. And again, we won't waste that colour. Let's just add it to the background, just so that we don't waste that. And you're creating another background you can create a card with, which is half the fun because you're getting extra backgrounds. As I did before, I'm going to cut out the legs first. Because it's just far easier to do it this way than it is when the bird's out of the card. It makes it a little bit more difficult when the top part of the bird is out of the card. You want it sort of so that bulky part of the bird is in the card. Just makes it far easier, she says. There we go. Just much easier. And yesterday I sort of didn't go up the feet area, but I am today. Just because I want to. I've now got an itchy eye just as I'm cutting out. Which is just typical, isn't it? There we go. There we go. So I've cut out the legs. And now that's the fiddliest part, because I can just cut out the bird, move my card, and it's so easy to cut out because it's just such a simple shape. Obviously you could stamp the bird directly onto the card, and that way you don't have to cut the legs out, you just cut the body. But I want a little bit of dimension. So I've got my little bird here. So let's grab, can you believe I'm actually remembering to grab my Posca pen? Is that the right one? Before I actually place the bird onto the card, which is actually unheard of for me. So we're we just add some touches of white, and we're probably better coming back to add the touches of white to this, just because it really does need to be a little bit drier. Just add our little bird here, and I'm going to make sure he's a little bit raised. You can have him where I've placed him, but I like him sort of looking at the florals. Let's just grab a wipe to clean my glue. I do love him sort of watching the florals, as if he's sort of taking a look. So I'm going to add a little bit of that pin flare, just so that he's got a little bit of dimension. Not much, just a little bit. There we go. And we'll just, I'm sure I put that white on the eye then, but it's not shown up. That's better. There we go. So this has had time to rest now. So I'm just going to add very, very sort of light touches of white, just to give it a little bit of the, and I'll just move the beard after we've just got it in the right place. I'm just sort of going around and adding little touches of the white, just to make things pop a little bit more. But what I'm not doing is I'm not pressing too hard, and I'm just going to just add a few dots to the center, and it's only the center floral that I'm going to add those touches of white to, not the other florals, just so that that appears more in the foreground. Now, before I add the splatters, I know I've left it out somewhere, but obviously as you move things, things move. That made sense. So I just want my little grey Inktense pencil, and it's so small that I just keep losing it. Let's not keep moving my beard. So I'm going to add a little bit of the Inktense pencil. You do know the beard's going to move now, don't you? Because if you'd got any sense, which I don't, you'd have added the shading before you added the beard. But hey ho, I've added it afterwards, and that's all there is to it, really. So let's just blend that out. And then I'm just going to rinse it sort of each time, just so that it's not too much. There we go. I'm still moving the beard, poor thing. Just a bit more water. That's better. Just add that shading. Then we're going to add some of our splatters. So just give your Posca pen a really good shake. Test to make sure your splatters are working. If they're not working and it's not coming out, then you can just sort of pump the pen lightly onto your non-stick craft sheet. But you don't need to press that too hard. Just so we can lift this up, just so that you can see. Now, we don't want our beard floating, do we? So let's add a little bit of shading. Look how I'm moving his legs every time I do it. So a little bit of shading, just there, like so. And I'm just going to take my Posca pen and I'm just going to just add a little bit of the white just around my floral. Honestly, I could add white touches forever. I love doing it. And I love adding layers of the white. I just think it works really nicely. So sometimes I even wait for it to dry a bit longer and then add more. So I'm then going to add this to a black mat just so that it just finishes it off nicely. So let's add that to a black mat. Now you've got moisture in that card, so I would recommend that you add some to the centre of the card. I'd also recommend that you allow your Posca pen to dry. I also think that when you let it dry naturally, you have less of the curling issues, because obviously if you use your heat tool, it causes your card to curl, but sometimes we have to do that depending what techniques we're actually using. Just so that you can see. Then I'm going to add that to my 5x7 card blank. There we go. So it's a little bit of a wider border as it goes on to the card blank. Let's move that just about a bit. There we go. Let's just give that a few seconds just to make sure. Oh. Just so that you can see this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Inktense pencil. I love doing a little bit of faffing. I'm just going to add my Inktense pencil just around the circle that, in other words, what's left and is visible. So I'm just adding it to that. I'm just adding the Inktense pencil to whatever is visible. Now we've stuck that down. So let's just pick this up a bit. So I'm just making the edge of the circle just a little bit darker. But these are the bits that I like doing and I like faffing with, just so that that stands out a little bit more. And then I'm just going to take my white pen and just go around the edge of the circle. I'm literally just scribbling lines. It's nothing technical. It's just a scribbled line, just so that you can see this. And it just looks beautiful. I really love it. And you can add, it's entirely up to you. If you want to go back in, honestly, I'm like this all the time. I finish a card and then I say, oh, you can. I do this every single time. So you could take your little brush if you wish. Let's just have a piece of kitchen roll. Let's take the excess moisture off. You can just add a little touch just to the inside if you wish. It's just a little touch. What I find is really good with sort of purples or blues, it's also good for sort of adding shading, so it works really well if you want to just add a little touch of shading. Take off the excess and you can just blend that all out, and that just pops a little bit more. Let me just lift that up for you. Just added a little tiny touch of the shading to the inside, and that is your card finished. So I hope you've enjoyed that and you'll give that a go. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.